me ask you something. When was the last time you sat across from your manager, or even thought about sitting across from your manager and said, "Am I ready for more?" Not hinting, not hoping they'd notice, not waiting until your annual review, but actually owning that conversation, walking in prepared, confident, data-armed, and ready to advocate for the career you have worked hard to build. If your answer is never, or it's been a while, or honestly, I don't even know how to start that conversation, then you are exactly where you need to be today. Because here's what I know after more than 20 years in healthcare talent acquisition. The nurses who move forward in their careers are not always the most clinically skilled nurses in the building. They are the nurses who learn to tell their story, who know how to position their value, and who refuse to wait for permission to grow. Welcome to Nursing Matters. I'm your host, Christina, and founder of the RN Network, a LinkedIn community of over 200,000 healthcare professionals and a healthcare talent leader who has spent 2 decades helping nurses and healthcare systems connect in ways that actually work. This is the podcast where we take the conversations that nurses are having in break rooms, in parking lots, and in DMs, and we bring them into the light. We talk strategy, we talk career, we talk truth. Because your career is not a gift that gets handed to you. It's a business, and it's time you start running it like one. So here's what we've got for you today. First up, our nursing news roundup, 5 stories from the last week that are actively shaping your nursing career landscape right now. We're talking NCLEX pass rates. We're talking the NCLEX blueprint that has changed. We're also talking about our career development focus. And this is the one that you've been asking for, so I'm excited to share that. And finally, we'll talk about the recruiter's truth. And this is where I pull back the curtain on exactly how hiring decisions are really made and let you know a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes. Today's theme is simple. Professional growth is not something that happens to you. It is something you build deliberately, strategically, and unapologetically. Let's get into it. All right, nurses, let's talk about what happened this week in healthcare. Because the policy decisions, the workforce data, and the industry shifts happening right now are not abstract. They directly affect your paycheck, your patient load, your career options, and your future. Let's break it all down. So in our first story, the NCLEX is humbling people again, and that's actually really important. Let me set the scene here. In 2023, nursing boards overhauled the NCLEX. Pass rates went up, everyone exhaled, maybe even celebrated a little. Then came 2025. Pass rates dropped for the first time since the redesign, and not just by a rounding error, but by meaningful margin. So now before you spiral, we're still doing better than we were pre-redesign. This is not a catastrophe by any means, but the direction of the trend, well, that tells a story. And I think we need to talk about what that story actually is. So when the pass rates spiked right after the redesign, critics said the test got easier, or that nursing programs got too good at gaming it, teaching to the test instead of teaching actual clinical judgment. I think there was truth in both, actually. The drop in 2025 feels like a course correction. The NCSBN is tightening the screws, and nursing programs that spent the last 2 years optimizing for test performance instead of clinical reasoning are about to feel that. There's also a bigger picture here that I don't want us to miss. We have a workforce shortage. We have new grads struggling to pass licensure. We have schools still catching up from pandemic-era disruptions that gutted clinical training hours. These are not separate problems. They are the same problem wearing 3 different outfits. In short, the pipeline is cracking, and we need to talk about it just the way it is. If you're a nursing student or new grad, take your preparation seriously. Not just the test prep, the clinical judgment underneath it. That is what the exam is now trying to measure, and no study app is going to shortcut your way through it. If you're an experienced nurse, hear me on this. You are more valuable right now than the market has fully caught up to. The pipeline producing new nurses is under pressure. Your licensure, your experience, your clinical track record, that's leverage. Own it and use it. And if you're a nurse educator or preceptor, this is your call to action. Not better test prep, better clinical judgment development. There is a difference, and the data is starting to show which one actually matters. So question for you, if you're mentoring new grads right now, are you building their judgment or helping them survive the test? Because those are not the same things. And one of them will matter a lot longer than the exam. So in our second story, health equity is now a licensing requirement. Let's talk about what that actually means. So the NCSBN just updated the NCLEX blueprint for 2026, effective April 1st. The headline here, health equity is now a formal, codified, tested competency for every nurse entering the profession. Not a nice to have, not a DEI initiative, it's a licensing requirement. Starting April 1st, new nurses will be expected to demonstrate that they can provide unbiased, equitable care regardless of a patient's culture, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or gender identity. It's in the blueprint. It's on the exam now. It is now the floor, not the ceiling. So personally, I've been waiting on this. For years, I've watched health equity get treated like a soft skill, a training module, something you check off at annual competency day and move on. And I have to be honest, that has always frustrated me because the research is not ambiguous. Patients experience measurably worse outcomes when their care is filtered through bias, conscious or not. The NCSBN putting this in writing is the profession finally saying, this is not optional. This is what a nurse is. Now, I want to give you the real talk version of this too. Adding something to a licensing exam does not automatically change what happens at the bedside. What changes things is culture, leadership, and accountability structures that reinforce equitable practice every single day. A blueprint update is a starting line. What organizations and nurse leaders do with that is the actual story. So if you lead a team or a unit, look at your onboarding, look at your annual education. If health equity competencies are not built in structurally, you're already behind where the profession is heading. Not behind where it was, behind where it's going. If you're an individual nurse building your career, fluency and equity frameworks is a differentiator now. In interviews, in performance reviews, in leadership conversations. This is not the kind of competency you want to be vague about when someone asks. And if you're a nurse educator, your curriculum just changed. Act accordingly. So question for you, when did your organization last do a real assessment of how health equity shows up in daily care practice? And I mean a real one, not a checkbox, not a slide deck, an honest look at what is actually happening at the bedside. Real talk for just a second. If you're a nurse who's burnt out, stretched thin, and wondering if there is a version of this career that gives you your life back, I need you to hear this. The Mama Coach was built for nurses like you. Founded by a nurse, the Mama Coach offers a proven coaching certification that teaches you to turn your clinical expertise into a thriving, flexible business on your terms from wherever you are. Imagine building income around your life instead of sacrificing your life for income. Nurses who complete this program are launching successful practices, creating flexibility they never thought possible, and serving families in deeply meaningful ways. Visit themamacoach.rnnet.org. Your next chapter starts now. In our next story, virtual nursing is working, but not for the reason that you think. So, as you guys all know, virtual nursing is everywhere right now. 10 major health systems shared data this week, and some of it is genuinely impressive. Thousands of bedside hours saved, readmissions down, discharge process faster. But here's the number that stopped me. Nearly 8 in 10 nurses at one of these systems said virtual nursing makes them more likely to stay. Let me say that again. More likely to stay. That's huge. In a retention crisis, that number matters more than any of the operational metrics combined. So we keep talking about virtual nursing like it's a technology story, and it's not. It is a workforce strategy story wearing a technology costume. What nurses are actually telling us is when you give us tools that work, define our roles clearly, and take some of the administrative weight off of our shoulders, we want to stay. That's not a technology insight. That is a management insight we have been ignoring for 20 years. Now, there is a catch in this data that I do not want to gloss over. A significant chunk of nurses surveyed said working with virtual nurses did not actually reduce their workload. And that tells you everything about how implementation goes wrong. Virtual nursing layered onto a short-staffed, role-undefined environment does not help. It creates coordination chaos on top of the chaos that already exists. Technology amplifies what is already there. If the foundation is broken, the amplifier just makes the noise louder. So for nurses thinking about a career pivot, virtual nursing is a real and growing specialty, especially for experienced nurses who want to stay in clinical care without the physical demands of the bedside. It is worth researching. It's worth pursuing. The roles are not going to go away. For nurse leaders, if you're considering a virtual nursing program, the implementation questions matter more than the technology question. Are your bedside roles defined? Is your staffing sufficient? Do your nurses have a voice in how this gets built? If the answers are no, the tech will not save you. So, something to think about here. If your facility has a virtual nursing program, do bedside nurses have a real voice in how those roles are defined? Because if they don't, you are going to get the utilization data and miss the retention opportunity entirely. So in our next story, health systems are finally treating nurses like strategic assets, and here's the proof. So something is shifting, and I want you to notice it. Health systems across the country are investing, and I mean seriously investing in growing their own nursing pipelines. Loan repayment programs, scholarship endowments, fellowship expansions, multi-million-dollar commitments to nursing education. This week's list includes a hospital offering up to $45,000 in loan repayment, a university securing federal funding to expand nursing enrollment by 25%, a fellowship that was previously only open internally, now open to nurses nationwide. Organizations are putting real money behind nursing development, and that is not nothing. So, for a long time, health systems said they valued nurses while simultaneously treating nurse development as an afterthought. The budget for nursing education was the first thing cut. The career ladder was a ladder with half the rungs missing. Loan repayment was something other industries did. What we're seeing now is a market correction. The shortage got bad enough that organizations cannot afford to keep treating nurses as replaceable. They are being forced to compete for students, for new grads, for experienced nurses. And competition requires investment. I'm not being cynical about this. I genuinely think this is good for the profession. But I also want nurses to be smart about it. Loan repayment programs often come with multi-year employment commitments. So before you sign anything, understand every single term. What triggers repayment? What happens if the role changes? Is the compensation actually commensurate with the commitment that you're making? Investment in nurses is good. Signing away your mobility without reading the fine print is absolutely not. So if you're a nursing student or new grad, loan repayment is now a legitimate negotiating point. Ask about it. Compare it across offers. Factor it into your decision the same way you factor in salary. If you're an experienced nurse evaluating a job change, ask directly what the organization invests in nurse development, tuition support, certification funding, leadership pathways, mentorship programs. The answer to that question tells you whether this is an organization that sees nurses as assets or expenses, and that distinction will shape your entire experience there. Something to think about. Does your current employer invest in your professional development in any structured way? And if not, have you asked why? Because the answer will tell you a lot about where you stand. We all know certification renewal sneaks up at the worst possible time. Your schedule is packed, your shifts are long, and the last thing you want to do is spend your weekend in a classroom. That's why I tell every nurse I know about ACLS.com, fast, fully accredited, and a 100% online course. Complete your ACLS, BLS, or PALS renewal on your own schedule from wherever you are. No travel, no waiting room, just evidence-based content that respects your time. Visit acls.rnnet.org to get started. Don't let your certs lapse. Renew on your terms. All right, our fifth story. Congress wants to pay nurse preceptors. Finally. So a bill is moving through Congress that would give nurse preceptors a $2,000 federal tax credit for training the next generation of nurses. It's called the Precept Nurses Act, and it was introduced by a congresswoman who is herself a geriatric nurse practitioner and former Navy pilot, which tells you everything you need to know about where this legislation is coming from. There is also the ICAN Act, which would allow nurse practitioners and physician assistants to practice at the full extent of their training under Medicare and Medicaid. Both bills are still in motion, and both really matter. So let me tell you what has always bothered me about preceptorship in nursing. Preceptors are doing graduate level educational work on top of a full clinical shift with zero additional compensation in most organizations. They are literally building the next generation of nurses one orientation at a time, and the profession has largely treated that as a volunteer activity you do out of love for the job. A $2,000 tax credit is not full compensation for what preceptors give. I want to be clear about that. But it is the federal government saying, we see you, we recognize this is labor, and it counts. And here's what I want you to take into your own workplace from this conversation. If you are precepting students or new nurses and your organization is not recognizing that contribution in your performance review, your pay structure, or your advancement pathway, that is a conversation you need to have. Don't wait for legislation to validate what you are already doing. On the ICAN Act, if you are an advanced practice nurse, this bill directly affects your earning potential and your scope of practice under the two largest federal payers in the country. Contact your representatives. This one is worth your attention. If you precept, document it. Track every student, every orientation, every new nurse you have brought through. That is your professional record. It belongs in your evidence file, on your resume, and in your advancement conversations. If you're looking for a template to build out a career portfolio, head on over to rnnet.org where you can download it and work on building that every day. If you are an APRN, follow the ICAN Act. Support it vocally. Full practice authority under Medicare and Medicaid is not just a policy win, it is direct expansion of your professional capacity and your financial ceiling. Something to think about here is your precepting contribution reflected anywhere in your compensation, your evaluation, or your career development plan? If the answer is no, what would it take to change that? And who do you need to have that conversation with? All right. So this is the segment I've been wanting to record for a while because this is where I watch talented, accomplished, clinically exceptional nurses stall out. Not because they lack the skills, not because the opportunity doesn't exist, but because they never learned how to ask for what they want in the language that leadership actually speaks. So let's fix that right now. We're going to talk about how to have crucial conversations with your manager when you're ready for the next step in your career. So let me name what's real. Most nurses avoid advancement conversations with their managers because of 4 core fears. And I want to walk through each one because I'm guessing at least one of these is going to feel pretty familiar. Fear number 1, I don't want to seem ungrateful. There is a cultural narrative in nursing that says you should feel lucky to have a stable job. And that narrative keeps nurses quiet when they should be speaking up. Gratitude is great. Gratitude that keeps you underpaid and underutilized is not. Fear number 2, I don't want to rock the boat. Nursing culture can be deeply hierarchical. Speaking up feels a little bit risky, but staying silent also has a cost. You just pay it quietly over time in career stagnation. Fear number 3. I don't think I'm ready. Imposter syndrome runs rampant in healthcare. Even the most accomplished nurses will tell me, I just need a little more experience. Meanwhile, their less experienced colleagues are getting promoted because they asked. That one stings, but it's true. Fear number 4, I don't know what to say. And this one I can actually fix today. Now, before we get into the how, I need you to internalize this. Advocating for your career advancement is not selfish. It is professional stewardship, full stop. Your manager is not sitting at their desk waiting to discover how great you are and hand you a promotion. I know we all think that at some point, but it's not true. They are managing a unit, hitting metrics, managing turnover, navigating their own pressures, and probably dealing with an inbox that would give most people hives. It is your responsibility, not theirs, to make your growth visible and your intentions clear. Think of this conversation not as asking for a favor. Think of it as a business meeting. You are presenting a proposal. Investing in your advancement is good for the organization, good for your patients, and good for your team, because it is. So let's go through the steps and the reasons why here. So step number 1, get clear on what you actually want. You can't go into that business meeting and ask for what you have not yet defined. Get specific. More opportunity is not an ask. A charge nurse role within the next 6 months is a reasonable ask. Step number 2, build your evidence file or career portfolio right now. Document everything: patient outcomes, quality metrics, projects that you led, new staff you oriented, students you precepted, certifications, positive patient feedback, every data point that demonstrates your value. Document it, date it, and save it. You are building a case file. Treat it like one. Step number 3, know your business case. What problem does your advancement solve for the organization? Frame your ask in terms of organizational benefit, not just personal desire. Leaders respond to ROI. Give them that ROI. Step 4, research the landscape. What do these roles actually pay, internally and in the external market? Knowing your market value going into this conversation is not aggressive. It is preparation, and there is a huge difference. Now, I want to share with you how to present your value in a framework that is easy to remember and really makes an impact. So you're going to use the past, present, future framework. And let me show you how this works. So first, you're going to start with the past. So here's what I've contributed so far: specific, measurable, time-bound, not I've been here a while and I work really hard. You need to be specific about all of the things that you have done that add value. Then you're going to shift into the present. Here's where I am right now. Show them that you understand your current role deeply and that you're exceeding expectations in it. Show them you have already been doing more than what they're paying you for. And then we shift into the future. Here's where I want to go, and here is why that benefits us both. Frame it as a proposal, not a personal wish list. See how that's structured? It's not, I want this because I'm tired on the floor, even if you are tired. So let's go through a sample script. First, requesting the meeting. You're going to let them know, I would love to schedule some time with you, 30 minutes or so, to talk about my career development goals and get your perspective. When is a good time for you? Now, opening the meeting. Thank you for making time for this. I've really valued my experience here, and I want to be intentional about where I'm headed. I wanted to share some thoughts about my professional goals and get your honest feedback and guidance. Next is making the ask. So this is a script you can use here. Based on my contributions over the last time period, you'll insert that, including 1, 2, and 3 specific examples, I feel ready to step into X role or responsibility. I'm committed to making this transition successful, and I would love your support. Can we talk about what a path forward might look like? If you're going into this meeting asking for more compensation, here's a script for you. I've done some research on market compensation for nurses with my credentials and experience in this region. I want to be transparent. I'm finding that my current compensation is below what the market reflects for my role. I'm committed to this organization, and I want to see if we can have an honest conversation about alignment. I love that one because it's so straightforward, and it really does hand the ball over to your leader. This one is for the pets, and I know you're out there, pet parents. You work crazy hours, you love your fur babies, and the last thing you want to do on your day off is sit in a vet's office for 2 hours waiting for assistance. Dutch is a licensed online veterinary telehealth platform that connects you with real licensed vets from your phone on your schedule. Anxiety, allergies, skin conditions, that mystery thing your dog keeps doing at 2 a.m., Dutch can help. Visit dutch.rnnet.org. Again, that's dutch.rnnet.org. Your pet's health on your terms. I would be doing you a disservice if I pretended every manager responds the way you hope. Some are growth champions. Some are gatekeepers. Both happen a lot. First, give it time and a follow-up. If your manager's not supportive, one conversation is a starting point, not a verdict. Follow up in 30 days. Bring updated documentation and reiterate your readiness. Second, seek lateral allies. Find mentors outside of your direct chain, a CEO, a department director, a clinical educator who can advocate for you in rooms you don't have access to yet. Third, document your attempts. Keep a record of when you requested developmental conversations, what was discussed, what was committed to. This matters if you need to escalate or if you eventually need to explain why you left. Fourth, know when to escalate. If your manager is actively blocking your growth, not just distracted, but actively discouraging you from applying for roles, refusing to support your education, or taking credit for your work, go to HR. Go to your CNO. A toxic manager is not the same as a busy one. So let's talk about red flags of a growth-limiting environment. Your manager cannot name your career goals. There are no defined advancement pathways. High performers, well, they're rewarded with more work, not more opportunity. Promotions go to tenure and politics, not performance. Your ideas get dismissed or co-opted. You have not had a genuine developmental conversation in over a year. If that is where you are, it may not be a conversation problem. This may be a culture problem, and culture is very hard to fix from the bedside. So the decision comes down to when do you stay and when do you go? So you're going to stay when your manager is open, even if they're slow. A real pathway exists, even if it takes a little time. The organization's values align with yours. Compensation is within reach of market value. It's time to go when you've had multiple conversations and no action. There's no path to market compensation. You're being passed over time and again for less qualified candidates. You've grown out of the culture. Your nervous system is telling you something your job description hasn't caught up to yet. You need to listen to it. Your career longevity matters more than your loyalty to any single organization. Nurses who treat their career like a business make decisions accordingly. All right, this is my favorite segment because this is where I get to tell you things that the people interviewing you will never say out loud. After 20 plus years in healthcare talent acquisition, I know exactly what happens on the other side of your application, and I want you to have that information. So let's talk about strategy number 1 today. Recruiters decide in 30 seconds your resume's top third is everything. So most recruiters will spend under 30 seconds on an initial resume review. Your resume's top third, which includes your summary, your credentials, and your first bullet points, either moves you forward or it puts you to the no pile fast. Every nurse needs a tight, targeted professional summary, not dedicated RN with strong communication skills. Please retire that sentence. Something like ICU certified RN with 7 years of critical care experience, charge nurse leadership, and a track record of improving HCA HPS scores, seeking a clinical education opportunity to drive bedside competency at scale. Wow, that resume gets me excited immediately. Strategy number 2, internal candidates are not automatically protected. So internal candidates often assume their track record speaks for itself, so they interview less aggressively. They don't prepare, and meanwhile, we have external candidates who come in polished, answer prepped, asking strategic questions about organizational goals. So whether you're applying internally or externally, prepare like competition is fierce, because it is. Strategy number 3. The interview questions that they're really asking. And I love this one because so many people miss the mark here. When were you last asked? Tell me about yourself. Because that really means, why should we choose you over everyone else today? Another question, what's your biggest weakness? It means, are you coachable? Another question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It means, are we going to have to fill this role again in 14 months? Know what they are actually asking. Answer that question, not the one they said out loud. Strategy number 4, compensation negotiation is expected. Silence is always leaving money on the table. Now, most hiring managers have additional compensation flexibility beyond the first offer, but they only move if you negotiate. Most nurses don't. They accept it because they are relieved. Do not do that. When you receive an offer, thank you, I'm very excited. Can I have 24 to 48 hours to review the full package? Then come back with a specific counter based on market data. A 3 to 5% increase at hire compounds significantly over the life of your career. That conversation is always worth having. Strategy number 5, your LinkedIn is being looked at before you interview. Every single recruiter is looking at your LinkedIn profile before you interview. Consistency between your resume and your profile. Professional engagement, red flags like disparaging comments about former employers, or a profile that hasn't been touched in 5 years. Your headline should not say RN at X hospital. That is the professional equivalent of a name tag at a networking event. Make it searchable, make it purposeful, and get a professional headshot. Super important. Strategy number 6. The thank you note, it's not optional. Now, a specific personalized thank you note referencing something from the interview, reaffirming your enthusiasm, reminding them of your strongest qualification can be a deciding factor. Email it within 24 hours. Send a handwritten note too. In the digital world, it makes an impression. I've seen it to be the deciding factor more than once. Strategy number 7, how to stand out when you're underqualified on paper. So, job postings are basically wish lists. Hiring managers post the ideal candidate knowing they will hire someone at about 70 to 80% of those qualifications if they love them in the interview. Apply with confidence. In your cover letter, acknowledge directly that you're a non-traditional candidate for this specific reason. Then make the case for why that doesn't disqualify you. Self-awareness paired with confident positioning is rare, but it does get attention. All right, let's land the plane today. So just a quick recap. NCLEX pass rates dropped in 2025, and that's a pipeline story, not just a test story. Experienced nurses are more valuable than the market has fully recognized. Health equity is now a licensing requirement starting April 1st, and organizations that treat that like a checkbox are going to fall behind fast. Virtual nursing is working, but only when the foundation is solid. Technology amplifies what's already there, good or broken. Health systems investing in nursing pipelines are making a long-term bet on workforce stability, and you should be asking what your employer is betting on you. And the Precept Nurses Act is a step towards recognizing that preceptors are educators. If you precept, make sure that it's documented everywhere it belongs. From our career development segment, advocating for your advancement is professional stewardship. Come prepared, evidence file, specific ask, business case, and market data. Use past, present, future framework to frame the narrative. And know the difference between a growth-limiting manager and a growth-limiting culture. The response to each one is different. And from the recruiter's truth, the top third of your resume is your first impression. Make it targeted. Internal candidates lose when they stop competing. Answer the real interview question. Negotiate every offer. Optimize your LinkedIn. Write a real thank you note. And when you don't tick every box on a job posting, apply anyways and make the case in your cover letter. The through line of everything today, your career will not grow on its own. It grows when you decide your development is worth advocating for, to your manager, to hiring teams, and to yourself. Nurses don't need permission to have great careers. They need strategy, clarity, and to stop waiting for someone else to recognize what they already know about themselves. You are the most qualified person to run your career. It's time to act like it. All right, so next week we are going somewhere I know a lot of you have been thinking about, and that's the nurse entrepreneur path. So what does it actually take to build a side hustle that could ultimately replace some of what you're doing today full time? It'll be really practical, real, and it may be a little uncomfortable at times, but you don't want to miss the next episode. So if today's episode gave you something, will you please share it with one nurse who needs to hear it? Not a mass share, just one person. Text them the link, tag them. Every nurse deserves access to this kind of information. And subscribe to Nursing Matters wherever you get your podcasts. Visit rnnet.org to join the RN Network. Over 200,000 healthcare professionals building careers and supporting each other every day. Find me on LinkedIn, Christina Archer, founder of the RN Network. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.